Hey look, 2 packages. This first one is not anime, so make sure to start with it. Find that part of it. Just split it open. It's Terminator Genisys on DVD. I guess there's a DVD in there. It felt pretty light. I don't know, this box looks a little... I'm just going to go the lazy route. Don't like doing this. Not towards me, that's not what Boy Scouts taught me, but... well, this would be the anime. Oh look, there's also a couple more here. So let's begin with whatever this is on top. I'm sure there's a DVD version somewhere in here. This looks like a Sentai release. Blue Spring Ride. Wish I had time to just watch all the things. Oh. So, as you can see, it's Region A, Japanese subtitled only. Oh, cut my thumbnail recently. Can't feel myself getting an edge in there. Okay, scissors, make today an easy day. That will probably cut it up enough to make it look like it's easy to open. There we go. It's actually not too bad. I'm actually going to throw this in the trash can because there's a lot of small pieces. So this has a single disc. We'll move that aside. DVD version has, interesting, 2 discs, completely different artwork. It's curious looking anyway, isn't it? So obviously you can see I picked up Pokemon, the Johto Journeys, even though I technically already have it. I figured it was worthwhile to take a look at what it has, because this is finally Viz releasing stuff, and I'm curious which episodes it has, because it might have the 2 that I imported Australian DVDs for. I'm trying to figure out how to tell. It's obviously not going to be there. So there's 4 discs. It doesn't say exactly which episodes it has. Alright, I just threw it in the computer real quick and verified. This has Fortune Hunters and Psychic Sidekicks, the 2 episodes that were not previously released here on DVD. Okay, obviously this one is Danganronpa. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's Funimation, Region A, dubbed of course. Always need to double check with a Funimation release. Get ready for Killer Year, School is in Session for Murder. Well, I guess that's supposed to be kind of the catch line. It's a nice shiny box. Let's see the effect. Oh, I see. So it's 1 picture, 2 discs. These are the Blu-ray. Then we've got a jazz hand girl of some sort. Burn. That's Booby. clothed, but still booby. 2 DVDs. Oh, jeez. Having trouble getting it to separate up here. It seems to be a little tight in there, so it's kind of hard to see the artwork in the back. I suppose we can always do this. Take a quick peek at it. Not entirely convinced that they're different characters. Her and her, as well as her and the one on the inside there. But it can be tricky to tell. Anime can be unexpected in that regard. Next up, we've got La Corda de Oro Blue Sky. Both DVD and Blu-ray versions. Region A only. Japanese with English subtitles. Once again, Sentai closed tab thing. Help me, scissors. Now, I didn't even watch the first La Corda de Oro, so can't comment too much on this. Also can't get that tab to lock down. Oh well. And then DVD version. This time the first discs both have the same artwork. DVD version has a second disc artwork. Next up, we've got Naruto Shippuden DVD set 24. Let's see, I did recently put the other Naruto Shippuden episodes on my streaming server, and I was able to see that it can be really hard to tell with these releases since they're not based or released on based on the Japanese seasons releases. But the last episode of the last episode of the last disc of the last release was the first episode of a new season, hence why it kind of transitioned at the end there, and this would be continuing that. Next up, we've got Ladies vs. Butlers, the DVD release. This one I pre-ordered back in February, and like I said, I pre-ordered this one from Right Stuff and the Blu-ray from Amazon. Amazon's thinking they'll get their copies in sometime next year. Right Stuff thinks they'll get the Blu-ray version in later this month. So I pre-ordered from Right Stuff as well. So worst case, I'll just end up with 2 Blu-ray copies. But most likely, the Right Stuff one is going to ship way before the Amazon one. This is a little loose there. Probably because there's a little tab missing. Let's see, maybe I should take a look at the disc itself. Yeah, it's a DVD rewritable. I think I found the missing piece. So this probably means the Blu-ray version is better to get. This one is English dubbed. How did I mean, not only does it say there, but I think I saw it down here before, English and Japanese. So, Anime Works doesn't release new stuff very frequently. I do believe their last release was also DVD rewritable. But this coming out on Blu-ray is probably notable, so waiting for that. And last but not least, you have If Her Flag Breaks. I have no idea what to think about this one. All I know is it's another NISA release. And they're continuing to do it in this format. Let's see, yeah, that's what I thought. So, first of all, we've got Blu-ray disc 1. 10 episodes. That does say Region A. Here we have disc 2. 12-13. Oops. Opening endings, trailers, commercial bumps, Japanese commercials. It's definitely the sort of artwork that makes me want to fire it up. But I haven't decided yet. Here we have an advertisement. Let's see. I think I have all these. And last but not least in this box, we've got the booklet, which most likely, like the other booklets, if there's a difference, I should probably actually look at them in more depth to find out, but admittedly, I'm more in it for the anime than the extras per se. Oh well, that's this week's anime DVD collection update. So last week I was watching the comic artist and his assistants, and I think my prediction pretty much panned out. It's walked a pretty fine line between I kind of hate all these characters and their interactions are funny. But I think it's... I'm trying to think how to best describe it, because it sort of fell into... not exactly a pattern, because that's the wrong way, but it kind of grew out of kind of introducing characters sort of patterns. I think there was probably still moments where I had to roll my eyes, because it's just like, come on. Like, I can think of one scene where the guy's asleep. He doesn't actually know what he's doing, but he does flip his hand in a way where he gropes her breast, and she had put his head on her lap. So really, that's all about her and her boundaries. But for some reason, the anime's like, yeah, when she's there, she has to punch him, and I don't know. I don't see making excuse for her to punch him necessarily funny. So, you know, that's what I mean by it kind of has boundaries issues. Like, I don't know. Overall, I would say it was enjoyable. Now, after that, I guess what I watched was Inside Out. And that's actually a pretty good Pixar movie, and I kind of, afterwards, wasn't quite sure what I felt like watching. And I can talk more about that later, but I decided to go with an obvious Funimation DVD Blu-ray combination from the pile over there, because I knew it would be dubbed, and none of them looked like they would definitely jump out and be, oh, I gotta watch this. So I went with D-Frag, because I think I had seen an advertisement for it and was kind of curious. I knew it would kind of have some boundary issues, sort of like comic artist and his assistants, and they were there, but it's kind of important to note that it's definitely more creative than that. So I would say this definitely, from just that point of view, it would be better to watch. But the interesting thing was that it looked like it was mostly just, oh, let's find an excuse to torture the main character, because the anime didn't have ideas. And I say that because once it had introduced a wide enough variety of characters, multiple things were happening, and it's like the anime wasn't depending on it. It wasn't a crutch that it was using. You know, it was still kind of a theme, but it was kind of more funnily messing with the character. And I think probably the best scene in the anime, which is also the best scene that exemplifies this, is the love triangle scene. And if you've seen the anime, you probably know that scene, because that one was really good, really fun, really creative. And leading up to that, the anime had started getting more fun, and past that, the anime was more fun. It almost felt like it was always on the verge of wanting to be cool, but I guess it kind of knew not to go that route or something. I'm not sure. Overall, I think it was actually pretty fun. Interesting characters, interesting ideas, just kind of a rough start. So, I watched Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F with my friend, and I think the word I came up with it was that it was neat. It's like, if you think of Dragon Ball Z movies, maybe different people think of different stuff, but for me, I think of the first two. A lot of people probably like the third one, and I think the fourth one was fairly popular, but, you know, for a while there, the Dragon Ball Z movies became kind of formulaic, you know, sort of like how the series did, and then they knew there was some sort of problem, they had to break out of that, and that's probably when the last two movies came out and they kind of did something interestingly different, and they were good again in my opinion. And then we got these latest two that came out. That would be Resurrection F and Battle of the Gods, which was the previous one. And these two seem to be actually setting up a completely new Dragon Ball Z storyline, I suppose, which it makes sense because, as my friend pointed out, there's a Dragon Ball Z Super or something like that, which I think is based around these concepts, and it's actually working out pretty good in my opinion, where if they went with trying to replicate the formulas that made certain Dragon Ball Z movies really liked, well, I guess it really depends. Me personally, I like the second movie the most because I liked the Kaioken Spirit Bomb. I'm sorry if I don't know their Japanese names. Kaioken might actually that is the Japanese name, isn't it? Because that's what the voice actress says. Anyways, I like the second movie because it's kind of all about what made those fighting techniques neat. Whereas the first movie's good just because people haven't gone so off the scale with the power level stuff yet that, you know, whether or not you dodge a sword or something like that turns out to be the thing. Whereas, I mean, this one kind of introduced the concept of a character did sneeze and almost destroyed a planet or something crazy like that. And they should have been like that, like, throughout the series after Super Saiyan or something like that. So basically, the earlier Dragon Ball Z movies, I think, are more like because they're a little easier to be in touch with, and I particularly like the second one because even Roshi was able to participate and be a useful character. You know, it's a good rounded cast of character. It's got a good build-up, and it really exemplifies what makes those techniques neat. Whereas I'm not quite sure why people like the third one. It definitely introduced different elements that were becoming more prominent in Dragon Ball Z, but weren't represented in movie 2. I don't know. I'm kind of babbling because the point is, you know, those first few movies I think could be action-paced because the action was still sane, and the Dragon Ball Z movies became formulaic because they were just not sane anymore, and that's why the last two Dragon Ball Z movies, well, first of all, when they introduced Janemba, they actually did introduce some concepts that made him seem like a seriously dangerous character, which was kind of lacking before. Everything else was parallels. What he did was interesting. And then in the last of the old movies, they decided to start going the story route. And Battle of the Gods and Resurrection F are still going the story route. Possibly a bit more so, but this one I think was an attempt to be more action-y than Battle of the Gods. And it worked out, I think, because of how Battle of the Gods set things up. Now, that said, the action is definitely not as exciting as some of the older stuff. So for people who go into it kind of hoping for that, they probably wouldn't enjoy the movie as much. But if you enjoy it for exploring the Dragon Ball Z universe, and power levels are there, talked about, thought about, but maybe not as, I don't know, it feels like it expanded the universe, it revisited the concept, it actually made it kind of interesting, I guess. I always thought Frieza was kind of not an exciting fight. They made an entire season, but you didn't feel like the scale of things was so much bigger than Vegeta versus stuff from Dragon Ball, I guess. So Vegeta felt pretty big when he was a bad guy. Frieza kind of only felt big because people told us the numbers were big once the fighting started happening. Interesting things happened. It's not as bad as just saying that, but I don't know. So that's what makes there's a lot of stuff, a lot of analysis that can probably be done about this movie in terms of what people think, why they think that, if it's going in the right direction. I think it's actually going in the right direction if Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball in general, is just being resurrected. You forget about GT. I guess you introduce these concepts of powerful characters, but you kind of look for interesting ways to make them work. And some of the things that made this interesting, for example, I think these are some of the smartest minions I've ever seen, at least at the very beginning of the movie. You know, once Frieza's back in charge, you know, it doesn't really matter because, you know, Frieza makes things Frieza's way, and those are pretty similar to stuff from way back when. But there's some interesting differences because then you have a lot of characters battling, and they weren't battling before. Like, I mentioned World's Strongest and Master Roshi now, and because Master Roshi did a lot of fighting in this movie as well. Because Frieza had a lot of minions, and they wanted to introduce or bring back certain characters. And that made that fighting interesting. They came up with other kind of limitations and whatnot. But then there's also interesting universe expanding concepts. Like, Frieza commented about how there were two people he was told by his father to never try to fight. One of those was the God of Destruction introduced in the previous movie, and the other one was Majin Buu introduced at the end of the series. And that kind of felt like it made it full circle, where like if he was the most powerful creature in the universe, save for certain things, then, you know, it makes sense that maybe he was told to stay away from certain dangerous things or something like that. And there's a lot more neat things introduced in it, in my opinion. I don't want to talk too much about it because I've already talked a whole lot about it as it is. But overall, again, I think it's neat. I think I could watch more movies like this. I think Battle of the Gods, I might have said similar sort of stuff, where the battling happened, and it's very Dragon Ball Z in terms of the setup and how it resolves, especially the Dragon Ball Z movie-ish sort of stuff. But they are much stronger story-wise, and there's laid-backness kind of to them. It's not exactly laid-back, but if I were to try and place my finger on it, I guess there's a thought of there's something about Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball, that was kind of a fun romp. And Dragon Ball Z is obviously too far gone to really do that. And Dragon Ball GT kind of proved that by trying to do that. And maybe the only problem there was that was really kind of a really well-funded fan work, really. But, you know, you put that aside and it's like, we can still have fun with these characters, and we don't even have to necessarily go to the World Tournament arc from the beginning of the Buu Saga, which was fun. But, you know, they can explore other fun things, other fun character interactions. It's been enjoyable, I think. So I'm wondering what movie's next, or if Super's next, and it should be interesting. Gotta give Dragon Ball Z some credit for being something that is easy to really talk a lot about. I watched Suki Monogatari, so I guess it's because technically, you know, there was interlap between stuff I was watching, because I watched the Dragon Ball Z movie with a friend, and that was mixed in the middle of D-Frag. So when I finished D-Frag yesterday, I had more time with which to decide what to watch. I'm like, yeah, I might have enough time to finish watching this. I finished watching it. And It's not the best of the Monogatari stuff, but it's definitely very good still. I mean, it's kind of funny when you think about what makes the best Monogatari stuff, because I was trying to think how many episodes there are of it, because it doesn't feel like much. This is only 4 episodes here, but turns out you keep adding enough 4 or 5 episode arcs and there's 62 episodes of the stuff. I'm like, wow, that's actually quite a bit. They're not cheap budget per se, I think, either. They're also pretty expensive Blu-rays, but it doesn't feel like it's over 50 episodes. This means it's just as long as Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And I think it's because it's chopped up into smaller chunks that it just doesn't feel as big as that, but it's interesting. And actually it's probably at or longer than, because there's that one that's airing right now that comes after Tsuki Monogatari, which I think chronologically takes place before Hana Monogatari, but they came out in that order, and the watching order should be okay. Or something like that. I don't know. Drifting, trailing. It was very enjoyable. It's always the case with the Monogatari stuff. You can put it off, maybe because you feel lazy and you just want to watch something dubbed so you don't have to read anything for the night or something like that. But then you're like, yeah, I'll put it on. I've got other things I was wanting to do, but I won't be able to focus on them while this thing's throwing subtitles at you a mile a minute or something like that. And then you just get drawn into it because it's fun. It's entertaining. Now, that said, like I said, it's definitely not the best one out there, because I can definitely think of ones which drew me in better, but it's still a good addition to the story. So since I mentioned earlier that I had watched it and would talk about it later, Inside Out. I told you that it was good, and there's definitely some personal preference there for sure. A lot of people were saying it was the best movie of the year. I don't know how many, a lot of people is a lot of people, but you know, technically if only 1,000th of every 1% of people that watched it said that, that'd still be a lot of people. So what I mean was, you know, there were definitely people online who talked about it and reviewed about it like it was really good. I'm like, I'm buying it because it's Pixar, and even Pixar's bad stuff tends to be pretty okay. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Cars, and honestly I'm apparently an oddball in thinking that Cars 2 was more enjoyable. I thought there was better personal growth there, I guess. But putting that aside, you know, I was looking at the Pixar movies and trying to think how I would rate them and what I would put at top tier. Now, regarding the Toy Stories, I'm not entirely sure. Toy Story 1, I think it's a good classic Pixar. You can tell it's the sort of thing that would help them break out and become notable. It's a Pixar classic. But I kind of don't like watching it a whole lot. I can watch it here, I can watch it there, but some of it feels a little cringy, I guess. The way the choices characters make, the way they act, etc., etc. And that's not bad. That's my personal preference. And I mention this because Toy Story 2, I'm not quite sure. I need to rewatch that, see what I think about it, because there's some parts of it that are touching. And I think some people point out that Toy Story 3 kind of touched on some of the same stuff, and so for some people Toy Story 3 wasn't as impacting. I guess for me it wasn't as impacting. It was still really good, but I wouldn't rate it top tier. So, you know, taking that into consideration, I would have put, not in any particular order, but The Incredibles, Up, and WALL-E as top tier Pixar. These are some of their best, and Inside Out is definitely somewhere in there, in my opinion. Which is interesting because I was talking about cringy moments with Toy Story, and well, I guess it's not exactly cringy with Inside Out, is it? It's weird what it does. And I guess I can't talk about it too much because it's a single movie, stands on its own. If you haven't seen it, it's probably worth getting a watch if you like. I'd probably place it closer to Up and Wall-E, because Incredibles is a top-tier Pixar film, probably for a very different reason. Because it's a very good superhero stuff, with a little Pixar mixed in. But in terms of playing around with your emotions, it's definitely more like Up and Wall-E, I think. And I'm not necessarily saying it's better than or as good as, and that you'll definitely enjoy it, but that's just my thoughts. So, anything else we're talking about? Well, I guess before next week is when I should hopefully pre-order next month's anime. I've already told you that I pre-ordered the Blu-ray version of Ladies vs. Butlers from Right Stuff, so I guess we'll see what happens there. But nothing particularly notable comes to mind. So I guess I should probably end the anime DVD collection update there. Y'all, have a nice week.